شغوف إلى ربه أحب.
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ala amma ba'd. Saad, can you put these slides also? Okay. So I hope inshallah we can finish what we planned today or tonight, and that is Salahuddin Ayyubi and the history of Crusaders. But before that, let me just take 5 to 10 minutes of why this is important to discuss about the history. Some of you might think there's so much going on, there's so much bombing, why we need to even discuss the history, why can we talk about the present and let's say the future strategy. So it's extremely important to know these things, why we are doing this, so that eventually we can have a confident way of looking at our past. When we see the state of Muslim Ummah right now, we see a constant confusion, don't we? We all are brought up in that confusion, at least myself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala define us, kuntum khayra ummatin tukhrajat linnas, you are the best ummah. You have heard this ayah, right? But our situation is messed up right now, right? You see any Muslim majority country right now, we don't have any say in world affairs. Just tell me one Muslim country who is considered a superpower right now. Big countries were going to attack Muslim countries without even asking. These are the people of champions of consent, right? They don't even ask for the consent when they want to bomb the other country, especially Muslim countries. And then when the Muslim country wants to defend itself, they will label it terrorist. And then they will ask you why you are doing the same thing. They will say we have a right to defend ourselves. But when they are defending, they are saying, no, this is terrorism. Well, you are doing the same thing. Actually, you're doing a lot more worse. But for a young person who is being raised in this environment, bombarded with TikTok and YouTubes, maybe adults, they know our history. You need to understand that it was not always like this. We had our golden age. We had our great history, great civilization. When Europe was struggling in dark age, we were flourishing. And this was not very long ago. In science, in technology, in intellect, in military, we had a tremendous impact worldwide in terms of civilization. So it was never like this from the day one. We had our Salahuddin Ayyubi, we had our Zahrawi, we had our Ibn Sina. In every field of life, we had our champions. All the champions from all different aspects came from the Muslim community. But if we don't know our history, eventually you'll realize that actually for the last 1400 years, Muslims are like this. No, we were not like this. Socially, we are very weak right now, but it was never like this. If you see Muslim countries, and if you go to Muslim countries, sometimes there is no infrastructure, there is no roads, and immediately you think, maybe something wrong have to do with Islam. No. And there is a series of colonialism, and that's our point inshallah tonight, that when you see lack of infrastructure, economic crisis, over dependency on IMF, we are always dependent on the zakat of IMF, Muslim majority countries. It actually is a very recent phenomena. If you see Abbasid Empire, our golden age, it was actually the other way around. Europe was struggling with dark age. Their economic was struggling, and we were flourishing. So this is just to give you confidence that it was never like this, but how it started, why it happened, this is why Crusaders' history is extremely important for us. So let's start with the Crusaders' history. Actually, before even I can say, there is a saying in English that a nation who doesn't know its history have no roots. So it's important for us even to discuss about the contemporary issue, what's going on with Israel and Palestine. We have to know where it started. Okay? Too much echo? Woman?
They're fixing it right now.
Oh, they can't? Brother Mochan? Okay, Brother Mochan is fixing, inshallah. Just give me a minute, inshallah. One of the objectives of this entire class tonight, inshallah, is to educate that the Palestine conflict is a very old issue. It's not the issue just started. It's a very old issue. And we will try to analyze the historical details so that we can offer some confidence to our youth. Let's say my daughter, 12-year-old daughter, I'm so glad she's not listening to me, Fatima, she asked me, we still didn't allow her to see the news and Twitter, but she picked from my conversation and my wife's conversation, and she asked me, Abba, why don't we have Khalid bin Walid today? 12-year-old daughter. Then there are so many Muslim countries, Abba, why can't we do something? She's looking at our numbers, not looking at our courage, unfortunately. So this entire practice tonight, what we are doing, historical analysis, is to give some confidence that it was not like this. We had our greats like Salahuddin, like Nuruddin, and others, and then to provide a realistic, pragmatic solution, what we can do if we want another Salahuddin in America, in the Western countries, what we can do to preserve our identity. Okay, now let's start, inshallah. Can we move to the next slide, the first slide? Saad? Okay, just make sure you move 2 slides and just remove the intro. Okay, so let's start, inshallah, while Saad is putting up the slides, inshallah. Let's start with our discussion, inshallah. So, who will tell me when did Crusaders came and when Crusade movement started? Tell me. Yes? 11th century. So that's a common narrative. If you'll Google it, Encyclopedia Britannica, you will going to see Crusaders started. Crusade started with 11th century. And I want to present a thesis, it's wrong. Okay? And this is my thesis, you can disagree with me. Actually, some of the Muslim historians already present in this case, I'm just forwarding their case to you. Crusade, what is crusade? Crusade, if you see, it's a, crusade came Latin word crus, which means cross. And the Crusaders called themselves as the bearers of cross because they were wearing cross. That's why they were called as crusades. So it was between Islam, and I'll tell you what were their motives, and the Western Europe, Christians. Western Europe, Christians, and Islam. That was the basically debate was going on. Okay, why they came and why the entire discussion started? If you ask a normal folk, they will give you the same answer. It started 11th century, ended in 12th century. But the reality is that Crusader, Muslim versus Western European conflict, had a history of very lengthy conflict. If you see, there are 4 phases of this conflict. Crusader was one of the phase. The first phase of this conflict between Muslim and Western Europe, or Western Christian Europe, was actually at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many of you have heard the Battle of Tabuk? Tabuk was, we are fighting with Quraysh? No, it was with the Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. And then you have a Battle of Mu'ta, Battle Zat al-Sulasil, and then you have furthermore the army of Usama ibn Zayd, all were fighting with the, let's say, Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire at that time. Then you move forward, some of the territories of the Byzantine Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, at the time of Khulafa, they lost, and actually Muslims had those territories within the Asia and North Africa. It happened within the first 4 Khulafa. So it is a very long conflict between Islam and Western Europe. Then a second phase will come, and that is, so first phase is Byzantine Empire. Second phase is Spanish Empire. Spanish, Spain, Andalusia. Muslims faced significant challenge when they were ruling the Andalusia for first 300 years. It was never very smooth. First by Umayyad, then Abbasid, but even Umayyad managed to have an independent Khilafah in Spain. Alhamdulillah, because Spain is closer to, if you see the map, Spain in Europe, is it closer to Baghdad or closer to Europe? Tell me, closer to Europe. So Spain would definitely be a first fall for Muslims in the hands of Christian if there is any attack, because they are closer proximity to Europe. So immediately the northern side of Spain, which is Europe, they would attack the Muslims in Andalusia and Spain. And there are few movements which will come from North Africa to help, but it was not a smooth journey always. Alhamdulillah, few movements came. Al-Muwahidun, Al-Murabitun, we don't have time to discuss that. But eventually Islam survived for, should I use this mic?
Let's try.
Okay. Sisters, can you hear me? Sisters, can you hear me? No?
Try this.
Yeah, I'm trying this, so I don't know how much else I should try. Sisters, can you hear me? No? Oh, well, that's a good idea. You say this. Brother Abbas, what should I do? Should we do istikhara?
Just go to the second room, and then after Isha you can come downstairs.
Can they hear you?
They can hear, yeah. In the back they can hear. Just in the back.
They can't hear? Okay. So, no, you all can move this side and sisters can come this side. Come. Okay. You all can move here. Allah Jazakumullah khairan. I'm sorry, subhanAllah, brothers, I apologize. But this looks like a, mashallah, a lovely gathering, mashallah. We are so close. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes our hearts so close. Ameen, Ya Rab. I don't think so. I need this, right? This is better. Yeah, if you can. Okay. Brothers, are we settled down? So while the sisters are coming, Ali, should we start, continue? Okay, so there are two phases I told you of the Islam versus Europe Christian movement. What was the first? Byzantine or Byzantine, either way is fine. Second, Spanish movement. Third, and by the way, Spanish movement, how it ended in Andalusia? We all know this, subhanAllah. With the Kingdom of Granada in 1492, it finally ended. And we know what happened with the Muslims there. What happened in the Muslims there? They were asked to leave, or they were massacred. Yes, what happened in the Muslims there? Yes. So, huge amount of Muslims were killed. Some of them were forced to convert, and some of them were taken as captives. And this is the history. Just Google it, you will see. 1492, Kingdom of Granada. It was worst crisis, worst massacre committed by, and church, state, and army. Three of them, they joined hands and they actually committed this. Army, state, and church. Three of them went together. Okay, then the third movement comes, which is actually our topic today, which is a Crusader movement. Okay, the Spanish movement is happening more of the western side of the Islam versus Christianity. Now we are coming to the eastern side, okay? This movement, and this will be our topic tonight, this Crusader movement was a reaction of Christianity against Islam. Some historians believe that Crusader movement actually started from the western side first. So the attack on Andalusia, I will tell you, attack on Sicily. Where is Sicily? It's between the Italy and North Africa, there is an island called Sicily. And then the attack on Northern Africa, they all are part of the rehearsal of the crusade before they actually attacked Jerusalem, and they took the Jerusalem over for 87, 88 years. Why it was started, and we'll discuss all these things. And this is our topic tonight because it's extremely, extremely relevant for our discussion. Obviously, it have religious, social, intellectual, economic, political motives and roots why crusaders came and attacked us, and we'll discuss that. But it used religion as a fuel, because you need to have an ideology which will fuel Europeans and Christians to give and sacrifice their life. But it have many other reasons, intellectual, economic, and others. By the way, which intellectual heritage they wanted to take from Islam? Europe was struggling in Dark Age, and we were flourishing. Remember this, intellectually. Yes, religiously we were divided, and we'll discuss that. Intellectually we were still better when they attacked us, remember. And alhamdulillah, Islamic resistance movement came when that crusader attacked, and Salahuddin Ayyubi was part of that resistance movement. Remember this. One thing I actually want to tell you before we move to the entire story, Jerusalem was not freed with the crusader when crusader attacked by Salahuddin alone. Sometime we have to come out of this bubble that Salahuddin came and it just freed the Jerusalem. No, fun fact, Salahuddin was not even born when the Jerusalem was taken away. You know when Salahuddin born? After how many years when Jerusalem was taken away? Any idea? Almost 38 years, right Ibn? 38 years. So it was an entire movement which produced great gems, including gems like Salahuddin. This is extremely important because we go to the idol worship, celebrity worship. No, there are many big celebrities we don't even know, but we know only of one of those, and that is Salahuddin Ayyubi. And fourth phase, so first is Byzantine or Byzantine, second is Spanish, third is Crusader, that's our topic. The fourth phase is actually the colonial movement between the Islam and Western Europe, colonial movement, which we still see. What is colonialism? In a simple language, when a foreign minority acquires full or occupies full or partial land of other country, that is called as colonialism. Any example? Yeah, there's no need to give example, right? When a foreign identity, foreign country occupies partial or full land, that is called as colonialism. And they start exploiting economically. That's also one of the part of colonialism. So it was colonial movements are also part, brothers, if you can move forward if there is space. Don't come and bite me, but if I got signal from the back if you have chance to move. Okay, why colonialism started from Europe? Do you know why it was started? Most of the time it is started because of industrial revolution which came in Europe. They want to sell their products in the rest of the world, and they want to have cheap laborers. How they would do this? Get cheap laborers from Africa, make all of them slaves. And most of them came from Muslim majority background, FII. Make them slaves, send them to England, Holland, France, including some portions of Germany. So they took people from Africa as they were commodities in the Walmart, and they sold as slaves, which impacted large number of Muslims also. So that's one colonial project, and obviously America was a champion in that. Why we have to be afraid of that? And then second, you colonize the majority of the countries so that you can sell the products. So cheap labor, sell the products, you will get the big slice, right? That's the entire mindset of the colonialism. When you see the Palestine issue, how the Brits after the First World War, when the First World War ended, 1918, when it started? 1914, 4 years. How it started, that's a different topic. But you know, see, some people are afraid that this current conflict might result in a World War III. Because World War I, World War II, it didn't just start from a day one that the entire world would start fighting. Just one assassination. That was the starting point of World War I. That's it. Then one country said, okay, this is my group. The other country said, this is my group. The one Ottoman Empire jumped and they took the side of Germans, and then the Brits and France and Russia, all they took other sides. And that took 4 years. Even Ottomans, the Muslims, didn't even jump in the World War even after almost 1.5 years. So it's a very long time. And then these historians will say this is World War I. At that time it was a great war, not World War I. It was termed as World War I after the World War II. Okay? So many times when you are in the ocean as a fish, you don't know what's going on outside of the world until a aquatic scientist will come and analyze the condition. May Allah protect all of us. Ameen Ya Rab. When you see the Palestine issue right now, how the Brits are, after the First World War and after the demise of the Ottoman Empire, Brits gave Palestine, literally they give Palestine as a gift to the Europeans, Jews. Gift. And obviously that have other, I don't want to take tangents, in the land which was predominantly Muslim. Now, obviously within the few years you will see a state of Israel will come out of that. Did you see how these things are connected with the Crusades? Everything is connected. So when you are talking about Palestine or Israel today, you cannot isolate the entire Crusade discussion. Or when you're discussing about Crusade discussion, you cannot disconnect that with the First World War and the Brits giving the European Jews the state to live, which is predominantly Muslim and Arab owned. You cannot isolate these incidents because this is part of our entire history. Okay, now let's start, inshallah, the first crusade, or how these things started, or what was the motive. By the way, just FYI, just Google it to see more of the connection. You'll be surprised when the Brits entered Jerusalem in 1917. Brits entered Jerusalem in 1917, and it's just First World War ended when the Crusades ended in 12th century, right? When the Brits in 1917 entered in Jerusalem, their General Allenby in December 11, 1917, he said this statement. Just Google it; it's right there. He said this: the wars of the Crusades are now complete. In 1917, you thought Crusades are ended in 12th century. British general, after conquering Palestine, he says the wars on the Crusades are now complete. Just Google it, General Allenby 1917, and you will get it. Similarly, French crusader, when he went after this and he went into the tomb of the qabr of Salahuddin Ayyubi in Damascus, he said, now we have come back, Saladin. All these things are connected. All what you see right now is actually part of a larger, bigger crusade project. So may Allah protect all of us. Ameen Ya Rab. But alhamdulillah, there are many movements that started. What we were going to focus is when the Crusader movement came, how they came, what Muslims were doing at that time, and how the revival movement produced people like Salahuddin, so that we can get some inspiration from it, and we can do the same thing, inshallah ta'ala. But remember one thing, rule of thumb before we can start. The Crusaders have not ended and will never end. What happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Iraq, and what is going on in Palestine is part of that project. May Allah protect all of us. Ameen Ya Rab. Okay, now let's start. Can we move to the, can we go to the previous slide? Oh, no, the slide with the map. Before I can tell you in detail, it's important for us to know what happened at the time of Salahuddin and Crusades in general, so that when I'll tell you in detail, you won't lost in the discussion. Can you see this, the map in front of you, sisters? Okay. So there were 3 crusades which involved Salahuddin. First crusade, people from Europe came, they conquered Jerusalem, they came from Constantinople, conquered Jerusalem and other major parts, including Edessa. Now, we'll discuss about that, how they conquered, what was the reaction of Muslims. When they conquered Edessa, Edessa was a big country, and it was closer to the capital of Baghdad as compared to Jerusalem. When an occupier is coming, will you be more afraid if it's coming to you close to your capital? Right? So Muslims, it was a wake-up call when Crusaders actually came and conquered Edessa. Edessa is Ar-Ruha, by the way, Ar-Ruha. Edessa. So now, first commander came, Imaduddin Zangi, and he united the Iraq and Mosul, and he conquered or take Edessa back. That was the first victory. When Edessa was taken back, this was basically a turning point in the Crusaders' history for attacking Islam. They had the urge of revenge. They sent another group of Crusaders to attack Muslim, and that was Second Crusade. And this time they came and attacked Damascus. Okay? Are you following? Why Damascus? Because Damascus was the heart of Syria. If you get Damascus, basically you will leave Muslims for a disaster.
So I just want to ask a question. Like the Battle of IANT, right, with the Mongolians, is that part of the Crusades as well?
No, that's later. Yeah. Huh? I'll tell you detail. I'm just telling you the summary right now so that you can pay attention. Okay? Damascus, they went to attack Damascus. But there, Imaduddin Zangi passed away at that time, and his son called Nuruddin Zangi, who was an Amir of Aleppo, Syria. He came on the request of the Damascus Amir, by the way, who was a sellout, and that's you will see throughout in our history, who was friend of Crusaders. No, the Amir of the Damascus. We'll discuss about that. And he said that Crusaders might take Damascus. Please, I need your help, Nuruddin Zangi. Nuruddin came. He took the charge, and he saved the Damascus, and he became hero. This is after the second crusade. So now Nuruddin is in charge of Mosul, Iraq, and now you have Aleppo, Syria, Damascus. Now Nuruddin realized that in order to get the Jerusalem back, what we need to do? We need to get Egypt also, because Egypt has money, Egypt has a location. Whoever controls Egypt, they say, will control Hijaz and Makkah and Medina. That's what they used to say. Who is controlling Egypt? A Fatimid. I will talk about Fatimid later. So he sent Salahuddin, things happen, and then Salahuddin controlled the Egypt after a long time. I'm just telling you the summary at this point. And then Nuruddin passed away. Salahuddin, after a long struggle of 12 years, got Egypt, Damascus, Aleppo, Edessa, these four major countries, and Mosul. And after that, he went and claimed back Jerusalem, because they realized, whether Imaduddin, Nuruddin, Salahuddin, they realized without combining these powers of Muslim community, we cannot take back Jerusalem, because they are a very big army. Is it clear? Okay, now let's inshallah start the detailed discussion of the First Crusade, and first of all, why it started. Can we go to the motive slide, Brother Ali? Okay, inshallah. Yeah, this one. Okay. If you will see the American historian perspective, they will tell you crusade started because Muslims killed the pilgrims. Have you heard this? Okay, if you will Google it in the kids' history book, obviously they have to defend themselves while they are putting the massacre, while we have a right to defend ourselves, right? That's what they say these days, before bomb the hospital, right? So back in the days, they have to change their narrative. So this change, controlling the narrative, is very old disease in them. So what they are doing, they are saying that actually Crusaders started marching towards Jerusalem because our Christian pilgrims were attacked by the Seljuks Empire, one of the dynasties within the Muslim community. So let's see what happened. If you read, first of all, there is a detail behind this, but understand this. I'll try to summarize as much as I can what was going on in Western Europe. Western Europe around the 11th century, if you focus on Europe right now, forget about Islamic dynasty for the next 5 minutes, had a very bad social economic status. They were constantly fighting wars within each other, religious wars, and it was a feudal system, so feudals were fighting the other feudals to capture more land. And there was always tension between two heads of Western leadership. One is Pope, which is religious leadership, and second is Emperor. So there is naturally who will control more, who will have more power. Eventually Pope will have more power, because Europe was a Christian theocracy, versus Christian theocracy. So because of this constant power struggle between the Emperor and Pope in Western Europe in 11th century, it created friction in Europe, because of this theocracy. And the Pope was becoming extremely powerful slowly and gradually. So eventually Pope will going to become, let's say, a king of East and West Europe. But there is a small problem. The East and West Europe, denomination-wise, they are not together. West practice Catholicism, so Pope can control them. East is not Catholic. The East of Europe is Orthodox. So they are saying our Aqidah is better, they're saying no, no, our Aqidah is better. And they would have the debates on, if back in the days they would have social media, they would have the debates on that. So that was basically making Europe weaker and the authority of Pope weaker. The Pope, by the way, his title was Pope Urban II. 2 years before Crusade, the first Crusade was in 1099, and 2 years before means 1097. In 1097, Pope Urban II suggested that we should go and attack the infidels. By infidels, he means what? Muslims. And maybe because of these three possible reasons why Pope must have suggested this. First, it will end the internal conflict and we will be able to focus on one common enemy, that is Muslims. We'll take out energy in the external enemy, not the internal enemy. Second, more areas in the east will open up for these feudals to rule, so they will end up fighting here. Okay? And third, some Western historians also say that Jerusalem was also sacred to Christians. Why? Because they claim Isa alayhi salam was born there, and they also claim, which we deny, what was their claim? Crucified there, and we believe that he was not crucified. Remember this. This have also have to do a lot with Salahuddin's story, how he conquered Jerusalem and what he did with that place. So he gathered a massive army towards Jerusalem. They appealed every segment of the community that you have to leave, you have to leave, you have to leave. And their motives can be divided in 4 different motives. First is religious motive. What was the religious motive? I already told you that these places are the sacred places for Christianity, and they would label Muslims as infidel Muslims. So Pope Urban II many times that this was done to save Jerusalem from the infidel Muslims. The Pope also said that there is an Islamic danger. If you see the Pope history, Pope Urban II, by the way, subhanAllah, looks like they are getting the pickup lines from each other, subhanAllah. Pope said, there's an Islamic danger to Europe from Constantinople, and that we need to liberate our Eastern Christian brothers and sisters who are living under the zulm of Islam. Just take a pause here. If you see any historian of 11th century, that the Christians who were living in the Muslim rule, they were enjoying and flourishing more than the Christians in Europe, just FYI. But you have to build your narrative, right? When Afghanistan was bombed, you know, one was the moral justification was that we have to liberate the woman. We have to liberate the woman. I don't know what does it mean. Maybe they will forget what is woman now. That's the liberation. Wallahul musta'an, because that's what we mean, because you don't even know what is a woman. And you want to liberate one. Wallahul musta'an. So this entire rhetoric, Islam danger, Islamic danger, everything means you can say you have a right to defend yourself, but if someone else is defending, oh, Islamic jihad, immediately just close the doors of defense, right? This is very old technique, very old technique. So the entire rhetoric to urge the listeners to take revenge against the Muslims was basically fueled by religious motive. That's first motive of the Pope or the Western Europe. And obviously that place was also considered as sacred from Christianity perspective. Okay, then there's a political motive also. What is a political motive? The political system was feudalism. You know what happened in feudalism? Even so in some Muslim majority countries, they call themselves Muslim, but they follow feudalism. Yeah, so if you have more land, you will be a boss. And in that culture, if you are a father who have 3 kids, 3 sons, if you dies, who will going to get your land? The older son. Okay, what about the other 2 kids? They will have jealousy, and then they will have fight, and then they will have conflict, and then they will have friction, right? Because they don't have divine guidance, so they will have to follow their culture and all those things. So what will happen to these brothers who didn't get anything? They will have, obviously, exert their energy, pull the legs of each other. So it was feudalism was creating disturbance. They realized by sending these jobless people into the crusade, if they win, they will get the land. They can control that land. So that was a political perspective, seeing from the feudalism perspective. So you cannot separate material goals and religious goals. Remember this. If you're trying to be oversimplification. Material goal and spiritual goals, even in the crusades, were common. But obviously they have to use the idea of holy war They have to use the idea to fuel the Crusaders to go and basically take the Jerusalem back. Okay. By the way, just fun fact. When Pope asked the people to leave, Pope abused his status so much that he said, Pope and clergies, if you would not go as a man, if you would not participate in Crusader movement, then you will be excommunicated. Socially isolated. So basically they put all the pressure that everyone will leave for this. Okay, social motive. What was the social motive? Social motive behind the Crusaders is that in the Europe Middle Ages, apart from clergy and warrior class, by the way, if you see the social status of the Europe, of Western Europe, clergies were like celebrities, and warriors, the fighters, were enjoying. But the vast majority of the people were masakin, who were working hard for their bread and butter so that they can keep the status of the clergy and warriors at this level. They have a humiliation in life. Economic status, I already told you, is down. So if you will tell them that by attacking Jerusalem and Edessa and these lands which have money, you already have a life of humiliation here. If you will get those lands, you will get a better life. If you will die, you will get the salvation from Jesus. Either way is fine, just go. So that's why you will see most of the people who came in Crusader, they don't even know the army skills. It was just more numbers and less, and not even army skills or how to engage in a fight. They came with a frustration mind and they just went. By the way, another fun fact, that when Pope was sending the people, he didn't allow the ministers and the clergies to go with them. Why? Yes? Because see, people are coming from all different backgrounds. It's not one ideology. They're using religion and economics and social motive. If you are going to have a learned scholar, Christian scholar will go with you, there is a chance of rebellion. It's smart, right? They always have this policy, divide and rule, right? So from the first day they said, no Christian scholar will go. It's just the army and a few people here and there. This is also extremely important. Economic motives. The financial situation of Western Europe was so bad. France was struggling the most at that time, by the way. Italy also was very poor. So they saw this opportunity that our condition would be better. That's why most of the Franks, by the way, the word Frank, when you see the Crusader history, Frank is referring to the Crusader fighters, even though they were Germans. So basically in our current time, England, Germany, and France. These are the countries from where most of the Crusader army came. Remember this. Okay. Before we can see what they did when they came to Jerusalem, what was the situation of Muslims at that time? This is important, right? Muslims, I told you, they were ruling Damascus, Aleppo, Egypt was run by Fatimid, Marrakesh, and then you have, subhanallah, Baghdad was the capital. Baghdad a few years ago was considered as a golden age, cosmopolitan city. What happened? Why these Crusaders came, they attacked us and we didn't do anything. Yes, Sheikh Hibban? They were divided, mashallah. Biggest division was Shia-Sunni conflict. Biggest division. And they were exerting more energies because who will going to take each other land? And sometime actually, the sad part is, I don't know if we have time tonight to discuss that or not, the Fatimid, an offshoot of Shia Caliphate in Egypt, they would call Crusaders, write letters to Crusaders to attack Sunni. Twice Salahuddin there was an assassination attempt by the Fatimid Shia. Once they came so close in his camp, they hit his face with the sword until the end Salahuddin had the mark on the face. That was not from the Crusader, that was from the Fatimid. Means how can you complain others? We have this, that as we are saying, our religion is divine, but our history is humane. Remember this. Our religion is divine, but our history is human. And we talk about these internal rebels all the time. So there was a Shia-Sunni conflict which was making us extremely, extremely weak. But Sunni themselves, they were divided in fraction. There was a Khalifa in Baghdad, which was just for symbolic figure. If you were going to make dua by mentioning his name on Friday, he is cool with that. He doesn't even have army at this point, by the way. He lost all of his power. He gave his power to all the different dynasties at this point, Seljuk dynasty, who have basically, there were offshoots, dynasties are coming within the Islamic empire, and right now Seljuk dynasty is the biggest, and then Zangid will going to become biggest. But Khalifa doesn't have any power, he's just there for barakah. He's just there for blessings, okay? Just like when the organizations, like mashallah, there are many masajid here, many national organizations are here. When you don't do anything, then all your concern will be about our logos on flyer. Have you seen that? Right? Masajid and the Islamic organization will say, we don't want to do anything, but put our logo on the flyer. That same mentality was coming from Abbasid Khalifa at that time. Whatever is happening, but just mention my name on Friday, that's it. So he was there for barakah, no army at all. And then Seljuk dynasty were divided even within themselves. When Crusaders were attacking, and we'll discuss that, they were not fighting with the Crusaders, they were fighting within themselves. Who was going to control more dynasty? This was happening within our ummah. From fiqh wise, there is actually a very interesting discussion. Fiqh wise, we were divided. There was a big debate between Hanbalis and Shafis going on in Baghdad. Should I tell you one of those debates? Just to get the idea that what we were doing when Crusaders were butchering our kids in our backyard, in Crusaders. So just 15 years ago, before the first Crusader movement, just 15 years ago, Baghdad was the hub, obviously, is the capital. So there was a difference between Hanbali and Shafi fiqh in terms of their secondary theological issues. So a big Ash'ari scholar came, Shafi follow Ash'arism. Ash'ari scholar came and he started saying, because he was supported by one of the righteous person, and he himself was the biggest scholar, but he was a little harsh on Hanbalis. So he started saying, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ كَفَرُوا. The ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, that Sulaiman didn't do kufr, but shayateen did kufr. Okay, this is the ayah. He did the tafsir of this ayah by saying, وَاللَّهِ مَا كَفَرَ أَحْمَدَ وَلَكِنَّ أَصْحَابُهُ كَفَرُوا. That Ahmad ibn Hanbal didn't do kufr, but the people who followed Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they did kufr. And why? Because it's a different discussion, it's an Aqidah discussion. It's a secondary level, Ash'ari versus Asari versus Hanbali discussion, it's not even related to us. And that it created an uproar, then who is with supporting who? Are you Hanbali, are you Ash'ari? We are discussing this. Our influencers back in the days were doing this, and Crusaders were preparing that, okay, let's march towards Jerusalem. Just keep these contexts because it's very relevant of what we are doing in today's society. So ideologically, politically, military-wise, sectarian issue, we were weak. Yes, technology is still we are better. Because technology-wise, we are better than Europe because we had the golden age. We were still better in military, but we were focused on fighting within ourselves, so we were becoming weak. And we were not organized around the 5th century when the Crusaders came because of these rebels and so on and so forth. By the way, Muslims were not even aware when the Crusaders came and attacked them for the first few years. Muslims were not even aware when the Crusaders came and attacked them. You know why? They thought maybe it's some of the internal Christianers who want to attack. The Christianers used to live with the Muslims also, Eastern Christians. They thought maybe it's them. It took them some time to realize that Jerusalem went. And we'll talk about this inshallah after Salatul Isha, that why they didn't pay attention. Was Jerusalem not important? Tell me. Now this is a controversial question. Why they woke up when Edessa went? Was Jerusalem not important? It is important, right? But why the Khulafa didn't immediately reacted? Yes, it's not a threat financially and economically. Multiple internal issues, but if they would have taken Damascus, that would have been a disaster financially for Muslims. You know how economic center worldview can destroy your ummah? Masjid Aqsa, who cares? That was the mentality in some people. I would say read the book of Sunni Revivalism by Salahuddin, a very good book on this by Dr. Azam. He actually talked about this, that it's sad that Jerusalem was taken away. No one jolted us, but when Edessa went, there was a fire. Even though there were scholarly work before that, but it's a sad reality. We were busy in ourselves. We had an economic-centric worldview. We were focusing on how to protect our regime and our dynasty, just like we are divided in nation states today. So we are focused more on our land than the ummah as a whole. So this is the start of why the Crusaders came. Do we have 5 minutes? 5 minutes, inshallah? Okay. Let me tell you of what happened when they conquered Jerusalem, and we'll take a break, inshallah, okay? Can you move to the next slide? And we are going to use this slide, inshallah, for a long time. Crusaders started with Western Muslims first, by the way. They conquered Sicily, Andalusia on the west side. This is happening 10, 15 years ago. And then slowly and gradually from after North Africa, after Toledo, after Sicily, now they are coming to the western side. They entered through Turkey first, modern-day Turkey, then Syria, and then reached towards where? Jerusalem. That's where they reached. They got many different towns, but 4 big cities at that time. One is Edessa, which is the last, by the way. They got Antioch in northern Syria, Tripoli in Libya. No, Tripoli in Lebanon these days, okay? And they got Jerusalem also. I just want to tell you before we can end how Jerusalem was occupied in 1099 by these Crusaders. And I just want to read a Christian author, how he defined when we were conquering Jerusalem, okay? This is relevant to us. Massacre was a small word. Massacre was a small word. They killed, when they entered Jerusalem, they took it by surprise, by the way. Muslims were not expecting such a big army is coming. They killed everyone, including every man, every woman, and kids. And I'll read the Christian author what he said. So if it's coming from Christian author, it must be more relevant than it's coming from Muslim author. You might think that there is an exaggeration. Some people sought refuge in the masjid. They even killed those people. Then they went into the ma'bad, the worship place of the Jews, synagogue. They burned all the Jews also. And remember, they did all this in the name of Jesus. And they don't have to do anything with Jesus, by the way. Okay, Christian author says, and I'm just reading what he says. You can see this in Encyclopedia Britannica. He says, it was such a bloodshed in the streets of Jerusalem and massacre of Muslims that even their Frank soldiers, the Crusader soldiers, knees were drowning in the blood in the street of Jerusalem. This blood was of the man, woman, and kids. Now see this. He says, for small kids, they grabbed those kids from legs and smashed it through wall. That's Christian author, Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm not exaggerating a single word. Or sometimes they will pick the kids and throw them from the hills of Jerusalem. Those of you who visited Jerusalem, I visited last year. As for the Jews, they were all burned in their place of worship. All the people were killed with their sword, not with the button that you can take them 500 people away. Can you imagine how much it requires to kill people with sword? Ibn Asir says, and Christian author confirms, almost 70,000 people, according to one report, were killed. How many? And it's not with button, with a bombing, with sword. Because there were 70,000 people, all the bodies of kids, women, and men were in the streets. And the body started getting decomposed. And the rest of few Muslims who were taken as captives were asked to wash the streets of Jerusalem because of the smell of these bodies. These are the words of a Christian author. So they have passed When you see 3,000 kids, 6,500 people already passed away, may Allah give them status of Shaheed, Ameen Ya Rab. This is just 1,000 years back. Same place. Inshallah, once we'll come back, we'll try to understand how Muslim resistance movement started and what we can do, inshallah, in our time. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. وتطلب نفس له طاعة ويبلغ سعد إلى منتهى. فؤاد شغوف إلى ربه أحب رضاه أحب لقاه. يظل يجيء إلى ربوة قرار ويسمو وذا مرتغى. فلا لهو يثنيه عن سيره ولا جمع مال تغى الشهوى. إذا ما ينادي منادي الفلاح تراه لذاك يحث خطاه. تراه لذاك يحث خطاه. جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. وتطرب نفس له طاعة ويبلغ سعد إلى منتهى. يتم ربي أيا غافرا رجوتك عفوا ولا لي سوى. ودمع يسيل على مصحف به يصل الله صوخ من أتى. فتلك سجايا لقلب سليم إلى الله دوما تدور رحى. فيا سعد من كان ذا همة إلى جنة في أعالي سماء. إلى جنة في أعالي سماء. جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. جمال الوجود بذكر الإله وتصفو الحياة بنور هدى. وتطرب نفس له طاعة ويبلغ سعد إلى منتهى. ah.